Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So let's go and talk about it. What's the best class to play, and specifically, what's the best skill to play? Because pretty much at this point in Diablo 4, every single class will have some sort of an A tier build that's very good. But there's one class in particular that sticks out better than the rest, and I know a lot of people hate it when YouTubers take forever, so I'm gonna get right to the point. So, what's the S tier? The S tier, the best class and the best build in the entire game is going to be a Barbarian with the Hoda Barbarian. This build is just going to be dominating majority of things that the game has to offer. The reason why is Hoda Barbarian is very, very fast, and on top of that, it hits very, very hard. And there's very few classes that have the speed and the amount of damage that this class offers. It's specifically because the Barbarian in general has an extra weapon slot. You can throw in Doombringer, you can throw in Grandfather, and you have some of the tankiest builds in the entire game while still maintaining an insane amount of damage. Plus, anything with Barbarian is just very, very powerful because of Berserking. And it didn't really get nerfed that much at all. Because there's no Abattoir of Zir, well, you don't really need to scale your damage that high. So you can even play a Hoda Barb without even going into Overpower. I actually did it last season, and it was still one of the stronger builds in the game. Even again, with the Overpower nerfs basically cut in half, it's still going to dominate compared to the rest of the class. So, now that we have the S tier, let's go ahead and actually go backwards, because I know some people just hate when YouTubers take forever. So I'm going to go ahead and actually talk a little bit about all of the builds here. So, now that we have the S tier out of the way, because again, I hate when YouTubers take forever to get to the point of what's the best. If you want the best, there's no comparison. Hoda Barb will dominate. But I want to mention what I've seen a lot of other content creators talk about, and I think that it's kind of bait. Now, keep in mind, everything that I'm mentioning, we don't have the season out right now. There could be bugs and glitches, like no one could predict like the Tibalt's combo points bug or the ball lightning bug to exist in the game when people are making their tier lists. But nonetheless, in terms of bait, because some people were saying, well, if they're nerfing other builds that have overpower, what about Whirlwind? Because they can't overpower. No, that one is terrible. Okay, the Dolmen Stone Hurricane build is still relatively bad. That's going to be like a bootleg ball lightning sorceress. It's still like maybe fun if you just want to do level 100 content, but I'm putting it in the bait category because it got buffed. There's also some minion changes specifically to Golem. I would consider that bait as well. There's Druid minion buffs. It's bait as well. There's also some sort of Shadow Blight Necromancer buffs. It's considered, there's even a Sever buff, but I consider all the shadow stuff relatively weak. The main thing that you probably want to look at if you're playing a Necromancer is going to be looking at specifically playing the Bone Spear and Bone Spirit. Alright, so now that we got the bait out of the way, what are the other builds that have some potential? So Ren has potential for damage. Any sort of a Conjuration has a bonus because they basically gave us, instead of 3% per like certain threshold on elemental damages, you now have 5, basically double. That's pretty big. It does take a while to ramp up in damage, but still going to be pretty good at the end of the day. If you are maybe interested in harder content, if the new boss is actually challenging, because that's something that is going to be in the unknown category, as this is going to be a prediction on what's actually good. And then on top of that, Ball Lightning, you still probably got a lot of potential. There's also the Blood Lance build, and there's also Arc Lash because you have basic skills being very, very powerful with the 2 new items in the game, specifically for your basic skills. And the best basic skill in the game is pretty much Arc Lash. Even in like season like 0, people are still playing it. It's just very, very good skill too. And there is bonuses with the Lightning Spear to actually apply vulnerability, so there's a little bit of a buff to that as well. Next up, in terms of B tier, I put the Bone Spear and Bone Spirit in B tier. Now, in terms of damage, they are an S tier build, no question. It's very, very strong in terms of damage. However, there is one major problem if we look at Season 3. Well, the Necromancer is one of the slowest classes in the game. If there's a bunch of traps that you need to dodge, and in general, what this tier list is supposed to encompass is all forms of content, not just like DPS only. I'm talking about doing Nightmare Dungeon 100s, because this is pretty much what we're looking at, because we have no Abattoir of Zir anymore, and there is no Gauntlet at the start of this league. So basically, it's just because Necromancer is a little bit slower. Now, it could be a really great thing for maybe the Gauntlet and the bosses when they get really strong. Maybe Bone Spirit can just one-shot them like you could in Diablo 3 with like the cheese that you can do via the distance. But Twisting Blade is still going to be an okay build, but there's just much better options. I put Upheaval here because it's one of like the worst feeling skills in the game because it has to wind up like a baseball bat and then it swings. It's a really good thing for damage, but its response rate compared to Hoda, it's just another level. Now, in terms of A tier, there's actually so many great builds in the game that I've included 2 A tier spots. So, one, we got the Penetrating Shot. This is going to be awesome. This could be rapid fire as well. It's just any ranged rogue build at the end of the day is going to be great because you can start scaling crit. There's buffs to Sky Hunter. Left to Windforce, we'll have to wait and see if it can stack past 12%, because if it can, then Windforce might be actually usable finally, which makes me excited because it's an OG Diablo item. And then the Tornado here isn't necessarily for Tornado Druid, it's just this tier list did not have specifically like Lightning Strike. But yeah, the Lightning Druid could be pretty good. It is a channeled skill, just as a heads up, and that's why I'm putting it A tier. It probably has S tier DPS, but because you have to hold still and it has to ramp up, it's a channeled skill. People won't like it. It loses out on speed by a long shot. And then the next thing up I have is Fireball Meteor. This thing is going to be awesome. If any of you guys played my Fireball build that popped off last season, a lot of people were enjoying. That build's going to be pretty good. You just literally throw in Meteor, and every time there's an elite, you slam down Meteor or a boss. It's going to be an awesome build for sure. And then you may be able to actually drop the Fire Bolt enchant, and the reason why is because now you have the ability for your Sentinel to actually apply some of these conditions, but that's going to be something that's going to be unfortunate with the Sorceress because you don't have a good source of vulnerability. You would then rely on either your Frost Nova like you did back in Season 0 and 1, or you can rely on the Sentinel to kind of apply it, but that's got an internal cooldown, so that's why I'm putting it over here. It's probably pretty good, but it's lacking the ability to consistently apply vulnerability, whereas other classes, it's just much easier. Like on Bard or Rogue, you just I have the Exploit passive, which the Exploit passive on Sorceress doesn't do the same thing as other classes. Now, over here, I also put the Shred Druid, so any like Wolf variant of Druid, whether doing like Crone Staff or even Shred, is extremely fast because we don't have high tier content. Well, the fastest build in the game, I would probably argue, is probably going to be the Shred Druid. Even though the Blurred Beast got nerfed, well, there's no high tier content. So what build is going to be one of the fastest builds in the game? Well, that's going to be the Shred Druid. It's just so awesome to play. And if you set up your, like, not necessarily macros, but if you set up one of your scroll forward to be an ability, you can literally scroll wheel and hold it, and you can AFK, sit in the back and watch it just go in a straight line and just melt content. It's hilarious and it's awesome. And then also, I want to put Pulverized Druid over here as well. The reason why I wanted to put Pulverized Druid here is because it's one of the best starters. If you just hopped into Diablo 4 and you're wondering, what should I play? I haven't played before. This is my first season. No doubt, Pulverized Druid is the best because you literally only need one legendary aspect and you just can just melt the content all the way through, and it's just a super smooth experience all the way through your leveling as well as towards the end game. It's just an awesome build. I also put Double Swing, and even though Upheaval has way more damage, and on top of that you can use Furor with the Upheaval, Double Swing is just a very awesome build because of Berserking. You go really fast, it has really high uptime. Again, it comes down to that speed. Now, the Berserker will also give you additional speed as well, and at the end of the day, Hoda is still going to be the best. And there we go. That's going to be the tier list for this season in terms of what's the best class to play. I mean, 100%. There's no doubt. If anyone doesn't have Barbarian in the S tier in terms of like the class, don't look out of the video. Barbarian has been so overpowered for so long with the Berserking and some of the Paragon nodes, but Barbarian is probably looking like one of the best classes. The rest, they're all kind of in the A tier. There's builds for every single class here, and there's some other things that have some potential that may need some more testing, and I put them there. So if you want a theory craft with maybe the new Bloodlance, unique chest armor, because we don't know how that's going to aim. If it aims behind you, that means every single shot you have to turn around, because how it works is it goes through the target, and if you're considered Lance, there's going to be some things that just need further testing, and without it, I don't want to give you guys some wrong info. But that's going to be my best predictions on what's going to be the best builds in the entire game for Season 3 in Diablo 4. But I would love to know your thoughts. What do you plan to play for your League starter? I plan to play probably some sort of a ranged rogue, and then I'll probably play some sorceress. I mean, I make every single class level 100 pretty much every single season. And then once the Gauntlet comes out, we're going to be going for rank 1, just like in Diablo 3. We hit rank 1 multiple times for the leaderboards, and we'll do the same thing with Diablo 4. But you got to kind of pick, you can't run all the classes. So we'll start off with Rogue, and then once the Gauntlet finishes, then we can start getting rank 1s, maybe on the rest of the classes, except for maybe Necro, because why don't we have a movement speed ability? I wish Necromancer had one. That's the only reason why I didn't put Necromancer in A tier. If you're having all these new traps that you have to dodge and stuff, and Necromancer doesn't have flat mobility, nor do they have some sort of like, thing to close the gap or just dash out of the way, like Blood Rush and Diablo 3. Just please copy and paste that. But other than that, like the classes are pretty much all good, except for Barbarian's just a little bit ahead, and Necromancer is just below because of movement speed. It does not lack damage, just as a heads up. But that's gonna wrap things up. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Let me know what you plan to play at the start.